Docudrama, Crisis and Witness. Hi, I'm Alexandru Pleta, and in this video essay I will look at the form of the docudrama, both as a social phenomenon and in terms of the narrative devices it uses. My focus here is on how docudrama has responded to crisis and its ability to bear witness to broader cultural currents. I will begin by contextualizing the docudrama, what it is, where it comes from, the social cultural conditions of its production and reception. I will look at how docudrama have articulated the cultural anxieties of different eras, and end with a brief discussion of Ken Loach's 1966 docudrama, Cathy Come Home. As a term, docudrama has been notoriously hard to define. We will begin instead by looking at some of its historical antecedents. For now, let me offer an uncritical definition listing some of its features. 1. It lies somewhere on a continuum between fact, unmediated reality, and dramatic form. 2. It deals with actual events in the lives of actual persons. And 3. Involves some elements of dramatized recreation or re-enchantment. Re-enchantments of historical events are as old as the form of drama itself, from ancient Greece to Shakespeare. In the 20th century, two major changes happen. One is the theater began to assimilate some of the strategies of journalism, and the second is the emergence of cinema. As early as 1898, George Melies is recreating the events of the Dreyfus trial. Battleship, Potemkin, one of the earliest cinema masterpieces, involves large-scale recreation of the battleship of the revolt. Newsreels such as March of Time, which began as radio news programs, are now shown in movie theaters. But the medium in which the docudrama comes into its own is undoubtedly the humble television. With the wane of the traditional documentary and the emergence of network television, the docudrama steadily rose in stature from the 1940s onwards. The mantle was taken over by the BBC in the 60s when it began commissioning a series of historical films. Stuart Hall in the 70s drew a distinction between the channel function and the medium function of television. TV acts as a channel when programs exist independently of their transmission, and as a medium when it actively shapes the material through aesthetic categories that are specific to it, such as sound, lighting, or editing. In addition to this, we must also account for the public mode of address of television. This is what has been referred to as the bardic function of TV, with its narrative taking the form or serving the function of a folktale or fable. Like a folktale, it represents the stories that a culture tells itself. Or, to take a more pessimistic view, mass media presents us with a spectacle, the ruling order's non-stop discourse about itself. Due to this, TV is also associated with a certain hegemony. What is shown on television is the result of a series of decisions that have already been made for a viewer, in this case by network executives. To take just an example, a docudrama could not show a former US president in his bathroom slippers and robe while embarking on a nuclear confrontation. While it might appear to be a trivial detail, it is illustrative of something broader. Missiles of October was broadcast in 1974, an era of public disillusionment with politicians, post-Vietnam and post-Watergate. It was a culture which needed, or was fed, heroic stories about politicians as men of action. Another factor here is the Hollywoodization of narratives, with protagonists neatly divided into active subjects who set history in motion, and purely reactive, passive suffers. The post-9/11 period was a particularly fertile time for docudrama. It was almost as if screen fictions were needed to fill the interpretive void caused by the incessant repetition of the footage of the attacks to the point of numbness. At the same time, this was a period when the US declared its war on terror and needed to assure itself of its moral righteousness as well as the threat of the enemy. It has been argued that media representations had already become modes of military conduct. There has been much theorization about the war film as a genre, with regard to its rhetoric and iconography. Just like Hollywood representations of World War II need to be contextualized in terms of Vietnam, so too would media from the War on Terror era. The act of witnessing in and through docudrama is one of great urgency, as history passes from lived to memory, passes into absence. But war is not the only crisis.
There was rats under the floorboard and I had the council down to take the floorboards all out.
Cathy Come Home, a 1966 television play broadcast as part of BBC's The Wednesday Plane series, charts the descent of a family down the homelessness ladder. It was perhaps one of the first pieces of television media that might count as direct political intervention confronting the conscience of a nation with its problem of homelessness. Though the play was generally well received, some of the criticism leveled against it was that it blurred the boundaries between drama and documentary. While some of the charges might have been politically motivated, again we find blurred boundaries being used as a term of denigration. The clear delineation between fact and fiction might have been more significant for television than cinema due to the institutional importance of maintaining trust in television's regime of factuality. I would like to look closely at some of the documentary codes in Loach's film and how he uses them to tell his story.
Sorry, but I'm afraid we'll have to move you out.
We were going to be evicted anyway.
Wipe that smile off your face!
This is not simply a stylistic device because the editing is relentless. Cathy's breakdown hits us like a gut punch. We are used to cutting anyway. Here we are forced to stare. This here is the performance of the real, beyond any psychoanalytic sense. This would simply have not been possible in a documentary. In its quest for objectivity, documentary could very easily have cloaked the systemic heartlessness of the heart of Cathy's anguish. Even visually, documentaries don't offer us the inside-out perspective. That is what Cathy Come Home achieves.
86.
In this video essay, I have argued that docudramas as a social phenomena stand testimony in crisis, in ways that have to be read beyond historical accuracy, as a culture's articulation of itself. By looking at documentary codes in Cathy Come Home, I have tried to examine how they render a sense of credibility, of reality. Because the real is not just what is actual, the real is what is possible, thinkable. Cathy Come Home ends with a famous harrowing scene of the kids being taken away from Cathy. Loach shot in his usual guerrilla method, and the bystanders at the platform were not aware of the filming taking place. What was possible that they would stare incredulous as the scene panned out in front of them? That one night in 1966 at Liverpool Street Station, no one intervened as social services forcibly took a mother's kids away from her. At that moment, was Loach shooting a drama or a documentary?